Hello students, I am Dr. Garima Srivastava from Lal Bahadur Shastri College, Lucknow. I am going to take up the international institutions in the continuation of the last lecture. So, the other institutions which are also related with the regulations of rules and policies, procedures of export and import of different countries are as follows. The first one is European Union. So, European Union is a group of 28 countries that operates as a cohesive economic and political bloc. That means, it has a member of 28 countries, and it helps in economic cohesiveness. That means, it also helps in the economic restructuring of the various countries who are the members of European Union. Plus, it also helps the different political blocs of different countries to set up different rules and regulations related to tariffs and taxes which are imposed on the products and services which we go in for exporting or importing from different countries. So, 19 of the countries use the euro as an official currency. Though under European Union, we can say 19 countries are using euro as their official currency. European Union single market was established by 12 countries in 1993 to ensure 4 freedoms. What are those freedoms? Freedom for movement of goods, services, people and money. That means, when we talk about exporting and importing, there should be some kind of unrestricted movement of people, goods, services and money. Why so? Because more and more rules, if they are implemented on the exchange of goods and services, people will not be able to go in for export or import between the different countries. So, by restricting that particular export or import between the different countries, we will be hampering the growth of different countries. So, European Union, it aimed to ensure the following freedoms, that is freedom for goods movement, services movement, the movement of human resources from one country to another, and how we are going to move the money or currency from one country to the another. So, European Union began as a European Coal and Steel Community. Earlier it was called as European Coal and Steel Community, which was founded in 1950 and has just 6 members. In the very initial stages, it only had 6 members. Now it has 28 members. Who are the 6 members? Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Luxembourg and Netherlands. It became European Economic Community in 1957 under the Treaty of Rome and subsequently became the European Community. The European Community initially expanded in 1973 when Denmark, Ireland, United Kingdom, Greece and Spain became the members. So, its name kept on changing and more countries kept on adding to the European Union. A directly elected European Parliament took office in 1979. In 1986, the Single European Act solidified the principles of foreign policy cooperation and extended the powers of the community over the members. Now, in 1986, they actually formulated the principles of foreign policy, how you are going to act or how you are going to deal with different foreign countries across the national border. What will be the different policies that will be applied when your product moves from your national border into the international border. That means, while you are going in for exporting or importing of any of the product or services, what are the different policies which are going to be implemented. Then the Act also formalized the idea of single European market. The Maastricht Treaty took effect on November 1, 1993 and the European Union replaced the European Community. The treaty created the euro, which is intended to be the single currency for the European Union. So, the basic objective of European Union was that whoever is the member of that particular union, they will be dealing in a single currency, that is euro. The euro debuted on January 1, 1999. Denmark and United Kingdom negotiated opt-out option. That means, they are still retaining their original currency and they are not going in for adopting euro as their currency. So, then came the euro crisis. The European Union and the European Central Bank, that is ECB, have struggled with high foreign debt and collapsing growth in Portugal, Ireland, Greece and Spain since the global financial market collapse of 2008. Greece and Ireland received financial bailouts from the community in 2009, which were accompanied by fiscal austerity. Portugal followed in 2011 along with the second Greek bailout. Then came the UK referendum. As the situation moved from crisis to the stagnation, the UK government announced it would hold a referendum to determine whether it would remain a part of European Union. On June 23, 2016, the nation voted to leave the European Union under what's now called as Brexit. Then comes the NAFTA, that is North American Free Trade Agreement. North American Free Trade Agreement, it is an agreement among United States, Canada and Mexico designed to remove tariff barriers between the three countries. Now, we can see from all these associations, the members, the countries are members of different associations and they try to regulate it through the rules and regulations that are made under those particular associations, and they regulate their trade, international trade under these agreements only. So, NAFTA was implemented on January 1, 1994 and it supersedes the US Canada Free Trade Agreement, that is CFTA, that took effect on January 1, 1989. A tariff is a federal tax on the imports or exports. NAFTA required the elimination of tariffs on half of the US goods shipped to Mexico and gradually phased out of other tariffs among the US, Canada and Mexico over the 14-year period of time. Now, because of this tariff, make it more expensive for consumers. The products were made more expensive due to this tariff for the consumers to purchase foreign goods. Import tend to decline when the tariffs are high. So, whenever the tariffs or trade taxes are more on the particular products, the people do not tend to buy the product. So, ultimately its demand will be declined, which in turn causes a decline in the supply of the product. So, ultimately if the demand of a particular product is declined, then the supply of the product will also fall and an increase in the price of the goods will lead to increase in the price of that particular good. The price increases usually motivates the domestic producers to increase their output for the product. So, when the prices of the foreign goods increases in a particular market, the domestic producers, domestic manufacturers, they come up with their products with lower prices, so that they are able to compete with high priced foreign markets, and people, they are not having more pocket size, they will go in for buying cheaper products which are available from the local manufacturers. So, under NAFTA, if exporting and importing takes place within Canada, the US and Mexico, the cheese would be subject to much lower tariff, presumably making the cheese cheaper than the Scottish import. Now, what is the importance of NAFTA? Why do we go in for free trade agreement? NAFTA is essentially a tariff agreement designed to facilitate trade and ensure that North American producers receive preference over goods not originating in US, Canada and Mexico. Then its main objective is to receive preference on the goods which are not manufactured in US, Canada and Mexico, so that the goods that reach US, Canada and Mexico, they reach there with lesser tariffs or at a cheaper rate to the consumers in the same country. According to the International Monetary Fund, trade among the three NAFTA countries more than tripled between the 1993 and 2007. So, NAFTA ultimately benefited US, Canada and Mexico, and its revenue almost tripled during 1993 and 2007. But NAFTA is also a highly controversial organization. That means that there are a number of kind of conflicts or disputes when we talk about NAFTA, when we talk about the implementation of policies of NAFTA, because the different US, Canada and America, US, Canada and Mexico, these three countries, they regulate NAFTA, the rules and regulations, but what about the other countries who are not the member of NAFTA? So, they will also play a role in in fixing up of the prices or in fixing up of the amount of export and import between the different countries. So, some economists and policy analysts argue that tariff interfere with the free market ideals by diverting resources to industries in which the US is less efficient and high cost producer. That means a US is a less efficient country, but it is a high cost producer, high cost product producer country. It basically involves outsourcing of people from the other countries, so that it is able to manufacture the product at a very lower prices. That is why more and more products, more and more people move out of other countries to US, because US is a capital intensive country. It spends more on people, it spends more on technology, and it is able to produce products that are of lesser price and is able to export this less price product in the different countries of its neighborhood. Now, we come to ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Now, what is Association of Southeast Asian Association? It is an association of nations which are dedicated to economic political cooperation in Southeast Asian countries. Now, earlier we were talking about North American countries, now we are talking about Southeast Asian nations. So, there is an association of you can say association of Southeast Asian nations which are member of ASEAN, and they specifically work for economic and political cooperation between the different member countries. Now, they all these associations, they work for economic stability, they work for political cooperation. That means different political parties, they prepare different rules and procedures and they apply it on the trade and tariffs of the apply it to the trade and tariffs of the products. So, the regulation of these trade and tariffs, taxes and tariffs on the product, they this ASEAN, it regulates this taxes and tariffs on the different products. ASEAN was established on 8th August 1967 in Bangkok, Thailand, with the signing of ASEAN Declaration, that is Bangkok Declaration, by the founding members of ASEAN, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore and Thailand. Brunei Darussalam then joined on January 7, 1984, Vietnam on 28th July 1995, Laos PDR and Myanmar on 23rd July 1997 and Cambodia on 30th April 1999, making up what is today 10 members of the ASEAN. That means now today at present there are 10 member countries of ASEAN. Now, what are the basic objectives of ASEAN? What does it works for? First of all, we have already studied, it works for economic growth, it works for economic stability between the member countries. It also helps in political cooperation. That means, it helps to establish a proper network of rules and procedures through political parties in different countries. So, first of all, we can say it accelerates the economic growth. Social progress means people, growth of people, their living standards in the different countries, and cultural development in the region through joint endeavors. They work on the basis of joint ventures, they work on the basis of joint endeavors between the different countries, so as to not affect their culture and give a boost to their social progress and give them an opportunity for different employment in the different countries. Then secondly, we can say it promotes regional peace. That means, whoever is the member of this particular association, it promotes the peace amongst these nations. That means, whatever disputes are there, whatever conflicts are there that arise in these particular countries are well settled through the negotiation system, dispute settlement system of ASEAN, and stability through abiding respect for justice and rule of law. That means, whatever rules or whatever procedures are being laid down, the member countries follow them. Then thirdly, we can say to encourage active collaboration and mutual assistance on matters of common interest in economic, social, cultural, technical, scientific and administrative field. That means, economic assistance, that it helps in monitoring of economic positions of different countries. What are the basic reasons of fluctuations of economic condition, whether it is there is a lack of economic policy in certain countries. It studies, it monitors all these things, and it gives proper suggestions or corrective measures to the different countries, so that they can rectify, they can improve their economic condition. It also helps in encouraging the social and cultural assistance, cultural field. That means whatever whoever is the customer is a part of the society of that particular country. So, it also looks after the basic needs of that society, the culture of that society, and whether that country is using a good technology or it needs another assistance in a technology, scientific field, administrative field, administration of various laws, rules and regulations of that particular country. Fourthly, we can say to provide assistance to each other in terms of training and research facility. So, ASEAN, the different member countries, they help in assisting in training and research fields in the different countries. That means they send, they are able to send professionals from their own country. These professionals can be educational professionals, technical professionals and administration professionals from different areas, and they keep on moving from one country to another who are the members of ASEAN, and they give certain kind of training and assistance to the different countries, so that they are able to develop the process of manufacturing, they are able to develop a better network of export and import, so that their economy is boosted. Then we come to the fifth one, is to work together for the greater utilization of agriculture and industries in order to expand trade both locally and internationally. That means it does not only takes care of the manufacturing units in a particular country, it also looks after the agriculture sector of that particular country also. So, leaving behind the agriculture sector of that particular country, we cannot move forward. So, it also takes care of greater utilization of the agriculture in that particular country. And if we see into the local agriculture sector and other industrial sector of a country, the country it aims at, ASEAN aims at the total expansion of local and international business of a particular country. Then it studies the problems of international community trade and improve their transportation and communication facilities. It monitors the different economic policies, it also monitors the trade trends between the different member countries, and through this observation they are able to get to know what are the gaps where related to transportation or communication facilities in different countries. So, it also helps those countries in improvement of the transportation facilities as well as communication facilities in the different countries. Then ultimately, if transportation, infrastructure, communication is improved in a particular country, the living standards of that particular nation are also improved. Then we can say to promote Southeast Asian studies. So, whatever studies are being done in the different related fields, whether it is marketing, whether it is technical field or it is societal, cultural field, all those kind of studies are also being promoted by ASEAN, and it also helps to come up with a certain suggestions or conclusions through these studies, which help the different industries which grow in the countries to change their product, to develop their product according to the changing needs and demands of the customer of different countries. It also helps to maintain close and positive cooperation with existing international and regional organization. That means it helps to maintain conducive relationship between different existing international and regional organizations, other organization also. So, if the people other countries are not the member of ASEAN, but ASEAN will give you a certain kind of network, a certain kind of platform wherein the people the countries who are not a member of the ASEAN, they can come together to discuss the various international and regional issues of the different countries with similar aims and purposes. Then we can say the IMF also researched what types of government policies would ensure economic recovery. Now, it also ensures what kind of government policies can be ensured through economic recovery. Then a particular concern of the IMF was to prevent financial crisis from spreading and threatening the entire global financial and currency system. So, whatever ASEAN says, it says that financial crisis should be avoided, and it can be avoided by what? It can be avoided by properly studying and continuously observing the monetary system, economic system of the countries who are the members of ASEAN. Then comes the next one, next association is, that is SAARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation was established with the signing of SAARC Charter in Dhaka on 8th December 1985. After consultation, the foreign secretaries of the 7 founding countries, that is Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka met for the first time in Colombo in April 1981. Now, what did they do? Afghanistan became the newest member of SAARC at the 13th annual summit in 2005. The headquarter and secretariat of association are at Kathmandu. Now, what are the basic objectives of SAARC? To promote welfare of the people of South Asia and to improve the quality of life. Now, Southeast Asian countries were covered in the ASEAN, South Asian countries are covered under SAARC. So, basic objectives of SAARC is to promote the welfare of the people of the South Asia. Now, how do the welfare of the people promoted? How is it promoted? It can be done by developing various opportunities of employment of the people in this particular area. So, now how this opportunity will be developed? SAARC helps the different countries who are the members of SAARC, it helps them to develop industrialization, it helps them to develop new products which are in demand, it helps them to study these new products and develop them, it also helps them to develop their technology to develop the products. So, ultimately all these things will lead to an opportunity of employment to the people of the of this particular area. So, if more and more employment opportunities are there, the people will have more and more jobs. Now, that means if jobless people are less in that particular South Asia, so they will, what will happen? If more pocket size is there, the people will be able to spend more, that means they will be having more demand for the product or services of that particular country. So, if the demand increases, the local manufacturers as well as the international manufacturers, they can increase the supply of such products. Now, if we go in for imports, if we want to bring foreign products into our country, there is a need to decrease the tariffs and taxes which are imposed on the product or services. But these tariffs and taxes, why are they imposed on the products and services? They are imposed so that the local manufacturers who have a direct threat from these foreign products, they will also be safeguarded against this particular threat. So, by imposing these tariffs and taxes, you will be able to maintain a price of the product according to the prices that have been fixed by the local manufacturers. Now, what does SAARC do? Secondly, it accelerates the economic growth, social progress and cultural development in the region, and to provide all individuals the opportunity to live in dignity and to realize their full potential. Now, apart from economic growth, it also helps in social progress and cultural development. That means, it takes into concern various factors of social progress. That means, whatever status is there of the people of that particular country, that means whether they are literate, it is all the demographic status, whether they are literate, whether they are illiterate or they are educated, they are professionals, what kind of jobs they are doing. It takes into care all these factors, so that the whole society progresses with the progress of the economy of that particular country. And it also aims at at not defending the culture of that particular country. That means it keeps hand in hand with the culture of that country without affecting the culture. It keeps the social progress in demand. That means it can take into effect, it can take into focus the educational growth of the people of that country, the jobs, the vacancies, the employment opportunity for the people of that country, so that people are able to understand their potential, they are able to employ themselves at a better positions. No one should be underemployed, no one should be overemployed, and properly the jobs are distributed amongst different specializations in the society of that particular country. Thirdly, we can say that it promotes and strengthens collective self-reliance among the countries of South Asia. That means it helps in the self-reliance, it helps in the self-development, self-building of the countries who are the members, that means South Asia areas. Then to contribute to mutual trust, understanding and appreciation of one another's problem. Now, whoever is a member of SAARC, they contribute to the mutual trust, understanding and appreciation of one another. That means they cooperate with each other and they try to deal with the problems of each other countries. It promotes active collaboration and mutual assistance in the economic, social, cultural, technical and scientific fields. It strengthens the cooperation with other developing countries. It also strengthens the cooperation among themselves in the international forums on the matter of what are the common interests of all these particular countries. Lastly, it cooperates with the international and regional organizations with similar aims and purposes. Now, we come down to the last organization, last association, which is dealing with the export and import of the products across the world, that is BRICS, BRICS. It is an acronym for the grouping of world's leading emerging economies, namely Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. BRICS Leaders Summit is convened annually. The chairmanship of the forum is rotated annually among the members in accordance with the acronym BRICS. Now, BRICS cooperation in the past decade has expanded to include an annual program for over 100 sectorial meetings. What are the objectives of BRICS? It seeks to deepen, broaden and intensify cooperation within the grouping and among the individual countries for more sustainable, equitable and mutual beneficial development. Now, whatever is the sustainable, equitable and mutual benefits between these countries of BRICS, it aims to deepen, broaden and intensify the cooperation between the member countries. BRICS take into consideration each member's growth, development and poverty objectives to ensure relations are built on the respective country's economic strength and to avoid competition where possible. BRICS is an emerging as a new promising political diplomatic entity with the diverse objectives far beyond the original objective of the reforming global financial institutions. What are the impact of BRICS on global institution reforms? The main reason for cooperation or to start among the BRICS nation was financial crisis of 2008. The crisis raised doubts over sustainability of dollar dominated monetary system. That means it has basic objective or basic impact to check over the sustainability of the basic of the currencies of different member countries and how far it is affected, how far the exchange rate of the currencies are affected with the effect on the international trade. BRICS called for the reform of the multilateral institutions in order that they reflect structural changes in the world economy and increasingly central role that the emerging markets now play. Now, so BRICS contributes in a larger way to what we call as Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. These countries are the member countries and it aims at economic restructuring, it aims at basically the growth of economy, growth of employment opportunities within these countries, these member countries. we can say BRICS managed to push for institution reforms which led to International Monetary Fund quota reform in 2010. Thus, the financial crisis has momentarily reduced Western legitimacy and briefly let the BRICS countries become agenda setters in multilateral institutions. Thank you.